What's the darkest secret you found out about a family member/relative? A relative tried to poison one of their guests. Once I learned about it, it finally sealed the deal for me and forever changed my view on them. They were bonkers anyway, but good lord, that's too much. Did you ever happen know the reason? I found out that my great-grandpa got away with murder. He thought that my great-grandma was cheating on him with her dentist, so he went into his office and shot him. He got away with it too, and they didn't find out that he did it until he told everybody before he died. Edit, since a lot of people are asking if she actually cheated on him. I don't know. But, considering he was an asshole that she was afraid to leave and he ended up being capable of murder. Probably. Damn. He shot the dentist, but he didn't shoot the secretary. My dad told me that, before my mom and dad broke up, he hadn't been happy with her for several years. My mother even had a miscarriage at one point, which destroyed the both of them. But he couldn't leave her, because he was afraid that she would hurt or even kill herself. So his only thought was to have a kid with her, so that motherly instinct would hopefully prevent her from killing herself. Are you the child that resulted? What a burden to have to carry. That my grandfather murdered his own brother to inherit his money. Edit, it's kinda funny that I received wholesome awards talking about how my grandfather was a murderer lol. Did he get away with it? Similar thing happened with my great-grandfather. Except he was the one who was murdered, leaving my great-grandmother. Her children, including my grandfather, were left with nothing but a couple of clothes and zero money. My grandfather had to start working in 7th grade as to not starve to death. Funny thing is, they were stinking rich and lived in luxury before that. He was a great man. I found out 2 years ago that my mother had a baby she gave up for adoption 18 months before she had me, and then had another baby when I was 3, and she also gave that baby up for adoption. All 3 of us have different fathers, and I think the only reason she kept me was because my father married her, but that marriage only lasted a year. My mother remarried when I was 5 and my half-brother was born when I was 7. As far as I knew, for 59 years he and I were our mother's only children. I never saw her pregnant with the second baby because she sent me to live with my great-grandparents across the country during her pregnancy. My mother and grandmother were the only people who knew about this, and they both took the secret to their graves. The only reason any of it was found out is because of all of the DNA testing people now do. This discovery really impacted my sense of identity for a while, my view of my mother, and our relationship. I've met my half-siblings, an older sister and younger brother. I like them and I'm glad I've been able to answer some of their questions, but the initial discovery really messed with me for a bit. My dad found out in his 30s that his dad wasn't his biological father. He got cancer and they found out it was from his father's side of the family, and my dad asked his dad about it and the truth came out. He knew that he was a year older than his parents' marriage, but didn't know his father was a different man because his parents were high school sweethearts. Apparently, they broke up when his dad went off to college and his mom dated someone else. When he found out, he found the guy and reached out. Turns out, bio father had given my dad's mom money for an abortion and walked out. He didn't even know my dad had been born. He told my dad to never contact him again and that chapter of his life was over. My dad has half-siblings out there that he isn't contacting because of the wishes of his bio father. Are your siblings anything like you? Did they speak good about being adopted? I hope you're doing okay with the news now. Both of my mother's parents had affairs without the other's knowledge. My grandmother had Parkinson's, and in one of her confused states she told my grandfather that she had an affair. Suffice to say, my grandfather was not happy and put her in a home. He then started talking to my mother, trying to figure out when it could have happened. He speculated that it happened around the same time he was having his affair, which was around 1966. My mother was shocked. She was born in 1967. So my mother may or may not be an illegitimate child. Wait, so he was pissed she had an affair, so he put her in a home, but he was also having an affair? An old farmer and his wife were sitting on the front porch one evening watching the sunset. The old farmer says, "Honey, you've given me the happiest years of my life, but I haven't always been faithful. Each time I cheated I put a kernel of corn in an envelope." Then he reaches in his pocket and hands his wife an envelope containing 5 kernels. His wife then says, "Well, I haven't always been faithful either, and I did the same thing." She then goes in the house and comes out with an envelope. The farmer opens it and sees 4 kernels. "Well, that's not so bad," he says. The wife replies, "Well, there used to be more, but when corn hit $10 a bushel I just had to sell. My mom and dad decided to take in my 3 cousins because their mom got into a horrible car accident. 2 girls and 1 boy. The girls were 6 and 10, the boy 12. Fast forward to when the 6-year-old girl is 14 years old and is asked about birth control. She starts sobbing, saying her brother, the then 12 years old, took her virginity when she was 6 and that it continued until she was about 13. We had no clue. How is everyone now? When I was about 10 I flew to Florida to spend the summer with my grandparents. I made friends with the boy at the end of their street. He had a younger sister, probably about 6 or so. I'll never forget them trying to persuade me to have sex with her. She was totally in on the deal. We were playing but the 2 of them were acting suspicious. At one point she unclothed and laid down. I noped the fuck out of there. So weird. Thanks Florida for this weird memory. My biological grandfather threatened to kill my grandmother while she was very young and pregnant with my uncle. Long story short, he was engaged to someone else. My grandmother became a nervous wreck while pregnant and wouldn't leave the house, and he used to throw bricks through the window. Eventually she told some of her friends about what he'd threatened to do to her. Shortly after that he went missing, never to be seen or heard from again. We always kind of laughed and joked that one of her friends must have threatened him or ran him out of town. We would even go as far to say someone might have killed him for her. It wasn't until we were going through her boxes of photos and love letters we realized she was actually friends with the Cratwins. I think you have your answer, mate. Cratwins? I'm very dumb and have no idea who they are. I recently found out that my grandmother committed suicide as a result of the sexual abuse she received from her grandfather as a child, aged 8 to 14. Apparently her mother and many of her relatives were compliant with it and would even send her to his house for week-long visits where she would sleep in his bed. This post made me cry. No one kept her safe. Near impossible to recover from such horrific abuse. I truly hope that wherever she may be now, she's at tremendous, blissful peace. What the actual fuck? I hope they're all burning in hell. I found out my father raped my sister when I was 11 years old. She was only 7 when he was sexually abusing her. Is he in prison? No, they said there wasn't enough evidence. My uncle's family claimed he had polio instead of a hereditary crippling disease. His wife figured it out when she went to their family reunion. She already had 1 child and was pregnant with another. Can someone explain this to me? I feel like I am missing something. That poor woman. Found out the hard way that my grandfather was a sexual predator. Turns out my grandmother had been in denial despite both my aunts, their friends, and young girls in their small town claiming he raped/molested them. One 16-year-old even got pregnant and he paid for the abortion. Grandma lied about his whereabouts/activities for years to protect him because if he went to jail she'd be unable to afford their house. So, long story short, me and my then 10-year-old cousin were his latest and final victims. Thanks, Grandma. Sounds a lot like my grandfather. Nobody talks about it, but it was revealed on the night after his funeral that he raped at least 2 of his daughters, and yep, Grandmother stayed silent. He enjoyed a pristine reputation for his life and our utmost respect. Quite a mindfuck it was, discovering that he was a pedo. Sounds like grandfather. He was a pastor. Raped and molested two of my aunts for most of their childhood, but he didn't touch his other daughters. Grandmother knew what was happening but didn't do anything. My earliest memories of him was when I was 5, he was trying to pull me to his lap but grandmother would take me and shoo me away. She never left me alone with him. I only knew about it when my aunt opened up about him. Nobody else knows in the family. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.